so for us to kind of bring that out we believe it's important to just kind of start off at the square one to have that. So, I mean, in that, how did you get started in the recovery scene?
Yeah, so I don't have an addiction background. My dad's a pastor, and so I felt early in my life, I felt a call to ministry,
Yeah.
and but decided real quick that I didn't want to be a preacher. In fact, I preached my first sermon when I was 15, my second one when I was 16, and they were both such a disaster. I was like, God, anything but this.
Yeah.
And so, I went through up and down a few years, and I wasn't following the Lord, but I ended up going off to college and got a degree in sociology. And it was called a practicum, so it was like my internship.
Yeah.
It was with a faith-based recovery program when I was probably 21, 22 years old. And I kind of got interested in that, but then I went into youth ministry and became a youth pastor for 12 years. And at my church, we had at the time, a 90-day recovery program that was a part of our church. You guys might, Turning Point Foundation,
I think,
down in Chilton County.
Okay.
And at the time, it was a part of our church. So I interacted with those guys. I ended up being the college minister at my church. And a lot of those guys, we called it college and career. And a lot of those guys at Turning Point would come on Sunday mornings to our class and to our time, and I just became friends with a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
In fact, still friends with several of them, 25 years later. And just always kind of had this draw to just helping people that were hurting, that were broken, regardless of what the reason was. That was just kind of the way I was wired.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I was trying to give them what I had. I just wanted to help them get to where they were trying to get to. Instead of being where they felt like they were. And most of those guys kind of felt stuck.
Yeah.
And so anyway, 2008, I kind of had this moment with the Lord where he said, if you trust me, step out. And I was like, first of all, I want to trust you. I want to be known as that guy. But the step out thing's pretty scary because I got a wife and a mortgage and car payments. And so I stepped out of youth ministry, ended up in about 61 days, what I called the wilderness, with not knowing what I was going to do. And I ended up through a chain of events interviewing at the Foundry. Walked in the door and thought, man, I hope this is a paying job because this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the job I started out at was called volunteer coordinator. And so I was kind of wasn't real sure, is this a volunteer position or a volunteer director?
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was the second. And so that was in 2008. And man, it didn't take me long to start interacting with the men and women that came to the Foundry before I realized, man, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of how I got into the recovery work and recovery ministry was really a step of faith. But I believe I can go all the way back to when I was 10 years old, man. And it's where I first realized, my mom was a school teacher at Inner City School in Tuscaloosa. And one Christmas, she came home and loaded me and my brother up and took us to Walmart. And she said, we're going Christmas shopping. And I was like, heck yeah. Well, only to realize we picked out all these gifts, we took them home, we wrapped them up, which I thought was weird, and then she explained to me these weren't for us, these were for her kids at school. And that's the first time I ever realized we didn't have much, but we had something to offer.
Yeah.
And that's really kind of what started, I really think, shaping me to do what I get to do now.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Just giving back.
Yeah, it's giving back.
Yeah.
It's taking the focus off of your own self. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of days I put my focus on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the whole reason I got into recovery ministry was to just help people. You kind of almost take it back to the story of the Good Samaritan, to help the guy out of the ditch. That's what I felt like my calling was.
Yeah. That's where kind of I've always felt, through my life. I mean, my 30 years of living now, and through my addiction, it's 15 years. So, I mean, half of my life I've been through addiction. So it's like, but I've always, even through my addiction, I've always tried to help people, but I did it in the wrong way.
Sure.
So, it's like where my calling is, I don't think I've truly found out what that is yet, but we're getting close, and I think God's leading us in a right way, because going through the foundry, man, it's stepped me out of my comfort zone, my willingness to help. It's taught me how to be who I am and to give, and and I'm grateful for it. That 6 months, man, at the farm was, I'm so appreciative of it, and it's all of you, like all of y'all, all the foundry staff through the farm and here, and man, y'all are just so giving and willing to, y'all just help, and I can truly see that in all the staff too, and that's where, like, what we, this doing this podcast, me and Chris would walk around the farm. It gave us all these ideas, being in a clear mind, man. Seriously, through 6 months, we made a little golf course out there. I'm sure you saw all the flags and stuff.
Yep.
So like we would just sit out and hit golf balls, and like we were just, I mean, it wasn't really a joke, but we're like, man, it would be cool. Like what would be something we could do to give back after this? Like we talked about different stuff, like the vlogs or something, and like one day we're just like, dude, let's do a podcast.
Yeah.
Like, and I know we talked through our time. I'm pretty sure I came up to you like when you first came up there. I said, man, I got an idea. You know what I'm saying? Like, please don't get mad at us if we start it. And man, you were from the beginning, man. You were just like, do it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. So.
And I'll say this, at that point of our lives, that was something that we could look forward to outside of it, till we could give back. And I always thought, it's like, hey, once I have this job, I can start doing this. Once I have this, then I'll be happy. We've learned you have to start now. We had to start. Go look at some of our first videos, Mike.
I saw the first one.
Yeah.
And what, like, we had mics that weren't even plugged in. They were sitting in front of us. They were plugged into nothing, just
We
running
didn't have
behind
a
the
stand.
camera.
We were sitting them on blocks.
On kids' blocks.
Yeah.
And we couldn't get the lighting right and everything. And it was just like, we have this vision. We feel like the Lord's leading us to give, to help people. We don't necessarily really we have a vision. We don't have necessarily a plan. We don't have all the equipment, but we have what we feel that we want to do, and we just started doing it. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad.
Yeah.
But we've learned in those times, the art of a conversation.
Yeah.
For like, we don't have to have everything together to start something. You can have bare bones. You really just got to have yourself and maybe one other person, and you'll have a dream, just come together to start doing those things. But I know, to, I guess, wrap it together, the foundry kind of helped solidify that, because look, I don't know about Chase, but you've probably seen a lot of people. I was not in a good shape coming into the foundry, not mentally, physically, or anything. And I was definitely at times the rub between, like staff living with 70 other guys, that rub, and it aggravates. But that taught me, compromise, resilience, perseverance, because you already don't feel good. Your life on the outside is just destroyed. Now you're separated from it, and you're like, oh my, you just feel like, and it helped me just to hey, trust God, trust the process. A lot of people, a lot smarter than us,
Yeah.
have set this up, through God, but people that actually do this, that at the time, and I just want to encourage anybody out there, at the time, sometimes it is hard.
Oh yeah.
It's tough.
You get there,
sure.
there's no fun.
Yeah.
But man,
It's other people telling you what to do.
Dude,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And they're like, you don't understand. Woo, 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 woo. And you're so mad at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Until, like I said, my chemicals in
know-
my brain were not regulated yet. So
I didn't
I'm
know it
just-
was 6 months until we were pulling up at the farm.
You didn't think those 30 days.
Surprise.
I had no idea, dude. I was so mad because I got out of detox. That was probably one of the craziest times I've ever had in my life. I went to JBS,
Yeah.
and dude, so at that moment, I'm just like getting out of there. I'm like, okay, well, let's go get this 30 days over with, and I'm like, and then I'm sitting there talking on the phone, and my mom's like, we got to talk. And I'm like, all right, I'll see y'all in 30 days or something. She's like, we got to talk. And I was like, what? And she told me, and I was like, that's literally what I did. I was like, what?
Silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but I can tell you one thing, dude. And my mom can tell you as well. When I passed through those gates in Coleman, I had a sense of peace about me. I literally had a sense of peace about me. And talking about the phones and stuff, that 6 months without a phone and things, and like that's where it sat me down. God sat me down there, dude, and just literally made me realize everything about my life. You know, the peace, man. I remember sitting in the back in the man. I'll tear up, but I sat in the back and just out in the field by myself, and like, or the back of the dorms, and I remember just thinking about nothing. I mean, that was like the first time in my life where I felt a sense of peace, man. Like I literally thought about nothing.
You got still.
Yeah.
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 And it was probably the coolest thing ever. I will never forget that moment. And I would have never God put me in the foundry for a reason, and that's one of the moments why. I had so many more cherishing moments, but that right there taught me so much, man, to just about myself. I'm like, you can find there is peace among this earth, you know, like you can find it. You just got to sit down. You got to place yourself out of things sometimes to realize it. And you know, and that's what I love about this program, man, is like, and that's why I'll always, it's not a debt, it's whatever, but that's why we have wanted to sit down and talk with you and like, and others, man, just to show these people, y'all, like in this program, and like, you can, man, like, you can do anything your mind's to it, but like, if you're struggling, there are people and places you can
You
go
really care.
that really,
genuinely
truly care.
Yeah.
You guys have kind of talked about this whole idea about, you know, you can call it a calling, you can call it a purpose.
Yeah.
I think it's Mark Twain, if I remember the quote right. It said the two greatest days in a person's life are the day they were born and the day they realize and find out why,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that we have intentionally focused on at the foundry and at the farm. You know, it's a timeout.
Yeah.
It's a slowdown. It's a timeout over here so I can go figure this out over here.
Yeah.
But I think the whole thing, because most of us, that's what we're chasing anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Significance.
Yeah.
Why am I alive? Why do I live? Why was I born? Right? And the foundry gives you that opportunity to get off the treadmill of life, so to speak,
Yeah.
and say, all right, I'm going to listen more than I talk.
Yeah.
Because as men specifically, we all have a gift to talk. We
Oh,
I can talk the best of them, right?
Yeah.
But the whole idea is to say, all right, let me take this time out, and I think that's one of the outcomes that a lot of the men that come to the farm experience is, I have a purpose in my life. And I may not have it all figured out, but man,
Yeah.
I'm 51 years old. I've been in ministry almost 30 years. I still ain't got it all figured out, but I
Yeah.
know what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And my purpose is to help and serve people
Yeah.
for the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
Bottom line. And I think that's what one of the things that is kind of the product that comes out. It's not just about being clean and sober.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I've said this many times. We can dry anybody out
Yeah.
over 6 months.
That's
Yeah.
truth.
But that's not the whole purpose.
Yeah.
The whole purpose is, all right, let's help you identify the calling and the purpose
Mm-hmm.
of your life. And I think that's what kind of makes the foundry unique.
Yeah. No doubt. I can totally agree with that, just because that's what it did for me.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, I tried to let guys that were coming through or came in, you know, And just that, I always said that to him. I was like, man, just settle down. Like, just take this time and regather and just try to just sit still, like you said. Like, try to find you, like that. I didn't just like find myself there. I kind of did, just because, like, I mean, like he said, it wasn't. I probably wasn't the roughest looking one in there, but my mind, man, mentally, I was gone. I was drained. I mean, and not to like bring this up, because like literally 3 days prior, I was about to commit suicide until I got to the phone. Like, literally 3 days. I went to GBS for 3 days. So the fourth day. So like mentally, man, I was just wasn't there, man. I was about to give up. And and that 6 months, man, you think it's gonna be forever, and that's what we talk about all the time. It's like, now where we're sitting, it's like, it's not, it's amazing. Like, I needed that. And some people don't think they do until you do it and you actually give it your all. Man, it's crazy what life can just change for you. I don't have everything what we're building to it,
Yeah.
but if I didn't have that 6 months well, I mean 9 months really, but
Yeah. Well, it's the foundation.
Yeah.
It's the foundation of a brand new start to say, hey, I don't like where I ended up living it this way.
Yeah.
So I get a fresh start. And I think that's another thing about the Foundry is with the time frame, right? That it gives you that chance to get just a clean, fresh start.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't mean all the cobwebs and
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
the
all
all
the
the
stuff.
circumstances and all that
Yeah.
stuff doesn't always go away.
No.
yeah.
But what it does, it gives you, I would say it's Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2, that I am transformed by the renewing of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
That I just get to have a new, fresh slate to write the story.
Yeah.
Or in this case, to allow God to write the story.
Yeah. I got you. I also want to ask you this: how do y'all? Because I mean, obviously, I went through a participant standpoint. How, on the flip side of that, how do you help cultivate this environment? How, I mean, I have no idea how that works behind that. Or like, how you, I mean, managing people, managing program. Like, how do you stay on the ball in that
Yeah.
in that sense?
So this is my sweet spot. Right?
Yeah.
This is what cranks my engine.
Yeah.
Because you guys know I don't have a lot of direct interaction with the men and women in our
Yeah.
programs.
Yeah.
I usually get a Thursday morning to get to do a
Yeah.
chapel service.
Yeah.
And then I just build relationships in passing most of the time. But I had to get comfortable with that because I really felt like that was where I was most alive when I first started. And then my position shifted.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And when I became the CEO, it was a totally different dynamic
Mm-hmm.
to where what in the business world we would call I'm one of the administrators,
Mhm.
right? And so having to get comfortable with that was a journey for me even.
Yeah.
But we got about 110 employees, right? So how do you cultivate that? What my favorite word is culture.
Culture.
How do you create that culture?
Yeah.
And the culture at the Foundry, I think, is one of the. If there was a secret sauce,
Mm-hmm.
it's the culture.
Yeah.
And man, I'm not a super spiritual guy, Chris, but I'll tell you this: I try to listen to the voice of the Lord, and I can tell you without question, in 2009, the Lord clearly spoke to my heart and said, "Love first, and love most." That became the first defining line for the culture at the Foundry.
Yeah.
That we said, no matter, because you guys know, you got to have discipline.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In a community setting like we have at the Foundry.
Oh yeah.
You got to have structure. You got to have guidelines. You got to have boundaries. Man, those are healthy in life, not just in recovery programs. But we came to the point where I knew that yes, we've got to have these things, but if we're not operating in love first, then it looks like we're against you,
Yeah.
right? And so I believe culture starts from the top and makes its way down.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell you, if I've done anything well, I've hired well.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired 5 of the most caring, loving, skilled individuals for 5 different departments that I have watched over the years, that same mantra of love first and love most trickle down from them to the people that literally that they serve as staff members, right?
Yeah.
Through that organizational flow and chart of different managers, directors, that whole thing. And so that's kind of how I think what we started really emphasizing the culture, that it was love first and love most. Second piece of that culture is that we would have a firm center and soft edges, right? That we were solid, we were firm on the center. And what I mean by that is we knew what we believed. We're going to live by that. But I don't have to have sharp, rough edges where I'm cutting people with,
Yeah.
And so that's a cultural statement that we live by. And here's what it does. There's a scripture that says men will be drawn to him because of the Jesus they see in you, right? So I don't want you just to hear me talk about how God can impact your life. I want you to see in us as a staff something different than you see elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that difference? It's the Jesus inside of us. Man, people ask me all the time, why are you always smiling? It's like, well, I don't always smile, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But when I do, it's because, man, I got something good on the inside.
Yeah.
That don't mean I'm perfect. I don't bat 1,000. I screw things up more than I even want to ever confess. Even though I just did right here on the World Wide Web. But the truth is, man, I'm going to stand before the Lord one day, and I want to hear Him say, "Hey, you did good with what I gave you to work with."
Yeah.
Right? And that kind of emotion permeates the staff at the Foundry. Again, do we hire some folks that don't always get on that same page? Yeah. But typically they don't stay long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why? Because the culture is so thick that it kind of pushes people with their own agenda out. But when you look at the core staff at the Foundry, and that's a lot of people,
Yeah.
one of the common threads is, without question, they have the men and women that come through our programs' best interest at heart.
Yeah.
It's not self-seeking, it's serving.
Mm-hmm.
And when you create a culture and an environment like that, you guys are that's the product that comes out on the other side, right?
Yeah.
That you have people that say, I can't take a deep breath.
Yeah.
There are people that care about me on this planet.
Yeah.
I'm not by myself.
Yeah.
I'm not alone. So I think culture is, I heard a guy one time say, culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? You can have the greatest strategy to help people you want, but if you've got a sour culture and a sour environment, the best strategy is always going to fail because the culture and the environment that it dictates everything. And that's what, I think that's one of the things, that's the secret sauce for us. And we hear it all the time. You guys, when you guys got ready to graduate, you filled out one of those exit surveys, right, as part of the journey. And time again, we hear the thing that made the difference for me is I felt loved. Well, that's not some pie in the sky kind of philosophical thing.
Yeah.
We genuinely want you to understand that we care about you, and the God that created this universe cares about you.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how we keep it.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes it gets in a ditch, Chris, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes we got to kind of pull it back, and we drift and we fade. But one of our core values is continuously improving. And as an organization, my job is to make sure we never get settled with doing things the way we've always done things.
Do you have do you have parameter? How does one set? Because I'm come from a business background.
Yeah.
You always have parameters, but this is a little bit different on having these. How do you gauge these parameters on those things?
Yeah.
You know.
So we have some core values, right? That are,
Yeah.
and core values can be this elusive thing, but for us, it's the four sides of the fence, right? That if it's an opportunity and we're not going to be continuously improving, everything we do to the glory of God.
Yeah.
We are passionate about our work, and we set others up for success.
Yeah.
Those are our four core values.
Yeah.
And so that kind of creates the fence. So if opportunities come to us that don't kind of fit inside that, we say no,
Okay.
right? We say, you know what, that might be a great opportunity, but that's an opportunity for somebody else. There's a book I read years ago called Narrowing Your Focus. And for years, the Foundry was a mile wide and an inch deep.
Yeah.
And so, literally in 2020, we said, all right, we got a timeout opportunity as an organization because the world slowed down to say, all right, what would it look like to do this to how we do recovery?
Yeah.
We went from a 12-month program to a 9-month program with 6 months of it on site or residential, right? We condensed that, but we made it thicker.
Yeah.
And by thicker, you spent 13 weeks in a classroom or learning environment while you were here at the Foundry. Used to, it wasn't that intense. But when you start looking at that, we just said, all right, what can we do to make sure it's continuously improving? So we took on that opportunity because it fit inside the fence
Yeah.
of what we value the most as an organization. Give you a great example. Several years ago, a local humane society came to the Foundry and said, hey, we can't operate as a nonprofit anymore. Why don't you take us over? And there's therapeutic value in pets. And we were like, absolutely there is. But we started thinking through that and we were like, man, we ain't got no business being a humane society.
Yeah.
We're a recovery program.
Yeah.
And so it didn't fit inside the fence.
Even though it was a good idea,
Great idea.
good intention, but it did not fit in that. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And so what we have to do, and what my job, one of my primary roles is to make sure we don't drift. There's a phrase, that we kind of live by, mission drift. We don't want to drift away from the mission that we believe God's called us to. You'll see it on the walls, a permanently transformed life. That's our mission, to rebuild lives and restore hope. Anything outside of that, we just kind of say, you know what, it's not bad, but it's just not us.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that makes us a healthy organization, a healthy ministry, is we do our best not to pick up stuff we ain't supposed to be carrying around.
Yeah.
I had a guy tell me one time, he said, my availability does not equate my responsibility.
Yeah.
Just because I can don't mean I should.
It should. Yeah.
And so that's kind of the way we operate as an entity, because, Chris, you alluded to this, but yes, we're a ministry, but we also are a business.
And yeah, that's where I was going, I
Yeah.
was going down that line of, I don't know the non-for-profit side, but, obviously with 110 employees, building sites, that's not free, right? So how do you as a CEO begin to, I guess, you're talking about focus near, like what's important, where does our money need to be going? What is a want versus what's a need? Like, what's going to help people better their lives or serve other people? So how do you focus that per se? Or if you're comfortable talking about
absolutely.
that,
So for us, again, it's simple because we've already asked ourselves these questions
Yeah.
for a long time, right? What squeaky wheel gets the grease?
Yes.
And for us, it's all about the people, right? It's all about the men and women that we serve. And so when I say that, if you look at the way we spend all the resources, say it this way, how do we spend our money? 90% of the money that we raise at the Foundry goes directly to programming. And what does programming mean? That means hiring the staff that are our counselors. It means paying the light bills for the buildings that we have. It's paying for the leases and the mortgages that we have for the buildings. It's buying the vans, which we buy a bunch of old vans,
Yeah.
right? But it's the food that we provide every single day. It's the people, the resources, and the opportunities. It's the curriculum that we pay for, right? That stuff's not cheap, about $90 a person for those Genesis books,
Yeah.
right? So you multiply that over 700 people that will come through our doors this year. That's a lot of money just in paper.
Yeah.
And then so 90% of what we raise goes directly toward programming.
Yeah.
And so there are some costs that you just have to incur when you're running a business.
Yeah. Cost of
And
doing business.
It's the cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business.
And so I don't know, you guys remember David Hall?
Yes.
Yeah.
David Hall was
yeah,
a guy,
yeah.
an employee at the farm, an amazing guy, now works for the city of Coleman, still involved at the Foundry Farm. But David used to use this phrase, and he would say, "We've done so much for so long with so little. We can now do absolutely anything with absolutely nothing."
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like we would squeeze every ounce of blood out of every turnip.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of our philosophy. That we said, all right, we are dependent on other people's generosity to do what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We can't have enough thrift stores to generate enough money. We can't charge enough to individuals, right? I mean, it's $695 as it is for the whole program.
Yeah.
We couldn't charge $10,000 a person and make up that gap if we didn't have the generosity of other people.
Other people.
And so it's this partnership dynamic that takes place where you say, we're going to do this part. We're dependent on other people to do this part. You guys know this because you experienced it. How many times do people just show up and say, hey, we're going to come cook a meal for the farm this week?
Oh yeah, no,
All
yeah.
yeah.
We run into them all the time.
Yeah.
That's
They're
not
like, "How do I know you?" And, it's
Yeah.
going into discussion.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, we came up to the farm," and it's cool.
So think about this. It's not only engaging people's heart and them serving, right? That's one benefit. But get real practical about it. That's a meal we didn't have to provide.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you multiply at the farm 75 guys at minimum $3, $4, $5 a head.
Mm-hmm.
You're looking at several $100s every meal.
Yeah.
So
That's breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Yeah.
and then some.
Yeah, and then
Right?
some. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so when you look at it that way from a business perspective, it's more than about just raising money to provide the services.
Mhm.
But again, the biggest chunk of that pie is, I think last year it was like 89 something percent goes to programming. To me, that's a healthy indicator that says because here's the other side of it, we got to be a steward of the resources that people are donating and giving to this ministry. So you want to be frugal with what you've been given.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if that kind of goes to what we're talking about.
And I know, I'll just put it out there, man. Especially, I guess, in this, they don't want to talk about money, but this ain't free. Like, money, like, at the end of the day, it has to be paid for, right? And so with those resources and everything, so how do you basically stay engaged in the community to get those donations or get the generosity? How do you do that?
Yeah.
Instead of like I know marketing or door-to-door sales or business to business, I understand that aspect. Like, how do you engage a community to get behind you to support this?
So that gets a little bit more into what I would call the business side of it, right?
Yeah.
And so there is a marketing component.
Yeah.
And I tell you the way I do it, I couldn't do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I did one good thing, and I hired the right people.
Yeah.
I hired the right person, who in turn hired the right team.
Yeah.
So at the Foundry, there's a team of 5 that are literally our outward-facing employees that really are the face and the voice of this ministry to church groups, businesses, civic groups.
Events. We met Brandy.
So I was gonna say
Brandon.
Brandy.
Brandy. Yeah, we met her.
Yeah.
So that's Brandy's job is community engagement coordinator. So on the weekends, it's not uncommon to see Brandy setting up a tent somewhere that says the Foundry Ministries, right? She's the one that goes to chamber meetings all across the central Alabama region. Why? Because here's our philosophy. When you think faith-based recovery, we want you to think Foundry.
Mm-hmm.
We advertise on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
We're in multiple publications in print, right? That we're saying, let's make the association for people. Because here's what we know. Everybody knows somebody that needs some help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
why not think of, and here's the other side of it. We know we're not the right fit for absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for those that are looking for a faith-based approach to recovery, think of us.
Yeah.
So there is a marketing. We have an advertising budget
Yeah.
that we are intentionally focused about to say every year we believe this isn't a waste, this is an investment.
Yeah.
But why? Because at some point somebody's going to pick something up or hear something on the radio that says this is worth it. You guys at graduation, I don't know if you remember the video crew that was
Yeah.
walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't our folks. That was a company that we work with
Oh, okay.
called Be Him Now.
Okay.
And there's a strategy there, right? Because they appeal to a market of people that are typically 35 and younger.
Mm-hmm.
Well, most of the donors that have supported the Foundry are a demographic of an age that's an older age.
Oh, yeah.
So we understand that we've got to be relevant to people younger, because at some point, if things all work out, they're going to be 50 one day,
Yeah.
right? And so there's a real strategy to it. There's an industry of development for nonprofits. And so we hired a great guy that has an amazing fundraising ability, but he also has the heart.
Yeah.
And so he surrounded himself with people that said, hey, this is not for my benefit, this is for our benefit.
Our benefit.
And when you get people on the team that
Yeah.
like that, I describe it this way, Chris, that I try to surround myself with people that are pulling in the same direction.
Yeah. That's what we talk about all the
When you
time.
do that, you guys might remember when I used the rope and the tug of war.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I was a
remember
part
that.
of this.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
that's the
game.
example. That when we're facing each other, we're pulling in opposite directions, but when we turn and all face the same direction, then ain't nothing can stop us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that goes back to our culture. We have a team of people at the Foundry that have decided, I want to pull in that direction.
Yeah.
And so, so you got to stay out there. You got to be in front of people.
You gotta be engaged.
You gotta be
you gotta
engaged.
out
And I think that's kind of one of the key pieces that it's constant, right? And it's not that we're in competition with other
there. Yeah.
people,
I'm not saying, you
but
know, I'm
we
not
want to
looking-
make sure we're on the forefront of your mind when you think faith-based recovery in the state of Alabama.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And look, man, I kind of wanted to ask you this. So I know we talked about obviously your job and everything. What does Micah do when you take your CEO hat off? When you take all these other, like, how do you take?
Right now, it's got an Alabama
Yeah,
shirt on.
yeah. But you know, you'll take all these things off. Like, what do you do to recharge?
Yeah. So that's a great question, Chris, because I think where people burn out is when they fail to realize their limits and they fail to figure out how to recharge. And I can tell you, for me, it's my family. I got two amazing daughters, one that graduated from Alabama, one that's at Auburn.
Yeah. I
All right,
remember.
so I got a split household.
Yeah.
If it weren't for my wife, I would make constantly poor decisions. Just kind of the way I am, I think. But she is a very caring, compassionate, loving individual, and part of her call in life is my call. And so when I recharge, I'm one of those guys that likes to sit down, get quiet, and not think. Right? So how does that play out? Sometimes it's as simple as playing a stupid game on my phone that I don't have to think about. Sometimes it's kicking back in a recliner, watching the National Geographic Channel. That's these Alaska shows. I love them.
Oh yeah.
Another way is one of the things that we've kind of done as a family since my daughters were little and they're now grown, is we like adventure. So we like to travel.
Yeah.
I finally have gotten to a place in my life where I can be gone for a week and not answer a cell phone, and the Foundry not even check up. It's better when I ain't here than it is when I am here, right? But that's because I've got great people that hold the banner high. They have a very high standard. And so for me, it's travel. For me, it's Sunday morning at my church. I serve as an usher. I don't talk about that.
Yeah.
But it's my selfless give back. Nobody at my church recognizes me as the CEO of the Foundry. You know what I am? I'm an usher.
Yeah.
I take up the offering. I seat people. I make sure everything that needs to be. Somebody spills something, I get the privilege of going over there with a napkin and cleaning it up. Why? Because I understand and I've experienced that I'm better when I give.
Yeah.
And I don't mean give commands and give orders,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about giving of myself.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I am very purposeful and intentional about. Because man, recovery's tough, not only for the people going through it, but also for the people that are walking alongside. And so I encourage our staff, man, we have a very generous paid time off policy at the Foundry. In fact, your first year you get a week off, right? I mean, it happens not even your first year. Your first month you start earning paid time off. And here's the reason: because everybody needs to be able to unplug.
Yeah.
And I like to deer hunt, so about mid-October to late
Yeah.
January, that's my unplug.
Yeah.
I got some dear brothers that I love to spend time with, and we do some deer hunting, and but usually it's quiet, relax.
Yeah.
Turn all the
Zen,
music off.
Yeah.
If I could do that, I mean, I would.
Yeah, the Zen.
But yeah, it's just I think our best probably way to say it is I recharge when I'm listening more than I'm talking,
I gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
Because that's when I believe we get to be still. We hear from the Lord. My faith is very important to me. Again, I'm not perfect, but I understand the value of a personal relationship with Christ. And sometimes when I'm at the gym, I have this playlist. It's called Workout Worship. And so I've just got all these worship songs, and I'm on a treadmill just kind of doing my thing. But what it allows me to do is it recharges my soul.
Yeah.
And I don't know about you guys. I'm one of those sauna guys. At the gym I go to, we've got a sauna, and I go in there and I set my watch, for 15 minutes because I don't want to pass out. But then
Mike's been there for hours.
yeah, what happened to him? Dude? He just withered up.
Yeah.
He just melted in there. And so those are the kinds of things where I just say, you know what? It's important for me to make sure I'm living healthy.
Now I was going to kind of, to piggyback off that. Do you set aside a time intentionally, or you just kind of go like, all right, I'm kind of feeling a little type of way. Let me take some time off, because I've seen it done both ways.
Yeah.
It works for different people, different ways. So I don't know how you would do it.
So I tell you, I learned the hard way. I used to be a run, crash guy.
Yeah.
Right? So I would run as hard as I could for ever how many days that took. But then I knew I needed about 24 hours to just sleep, crash, and recharge. That ended up not being healthy for me.
Yeah.
In fact, that led to a lot of dysfunction in my heart and in my mind.
Yeah.
And so what I learned is I know that I have to go every single day and recharge a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? But that ain't always easy, especially when you got a family, raising kids, you got a full-time job. I don't live anywhere close to the Foundry in Bessemer, so I got about an hour drive every day to work, and so you factor all in that time, you don't have a whole lot of time.
Yeah.
So I know, my pastor says it this way: what you got to do, you don't do all day, you just do every day.
Yeah.
Right? And so for me, it's a recharge every day. It's usually about 10, 15 minutes in the morning. I got a great devotional book that a friend gave me a long time ago that I just read through every year. I'm on my second year of that book. I say every year, it's only the second year. But it's phenomenal. It's called New Morning Mercies. And
I think I've got that one.
dude, I love it.
Who's it by?
Paul David Tripp, I think is his name,
yeah.
something like that.
Got that one, and I forget what the lady's name is. I forget.
So for me, it's that I got to have that 15 minutes, usually sitting down in a little spare bedroom in my house. We keep it really cold at my house, so I go down and turn on a little space heater, even in the middle of the summer, just to kind of warm up from the night. And because I learned the value of what I do first influences the rest.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So if I will start my day, I do this weird little thing. I've done it as far back as I can remember. I'm talking about decades. That when I wake up, I'm very intentional about the very first words I speak are "Good morning, Lord." Not because, here's why. Because I know the value of how I start influences the rest of my day. And so that's kind of the way I do it, is I just have those moments in the morning. I try to have moments throughout the day, especially if something, stressful is taking place. I'll try to get away, get quiet, kind of meditate for just a few minutes. And there's some tricks, right? I learned one recently. I'm not a big meditator or a big Zen guy, but I'm all right. slow my brain down for a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of the tricks was look at 5 different things. Then name 5 different things that I see. Name 4 things that I can touch. Name 3 things that I can hear. Name 2 things that I can smell. Right, and then I forget what the last one is. The one. But man, you take a moment and you just start identifying things. What it does is it just slows your probably slows your heart rate down.
Yeah.
But it definitely slows your brain rate down to where you say, all right, because think about this, the world we live in is full of noise.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much
Sure, yeah.
noise. So when I can calm my soul, sometimes it's sitting down and playing a worship song on my phone. I got this new playlist. It's about a month old. That is all instrumental. It's all piano music. I'm not a big classic. I'm not a classical fan. But there's something about a piano playlist that, man, it just kind of settles things down. And so I'll do that.
Yeah.
And then in the evening, I just try to do. I make it a practice that about 6 o'clock, I put my phone down, right? Because unless I'm playing that game, which is a dumb block game that
Yeah.
one of them free ones that you get.
Yeah.
There's nothing thought provoking about it.
Yeah.
Pay
That's
for
what I
more,
call
it's like, no.
it's mindless entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I try to be very intentional about putting my phone down because I'm one of those guys. I can't stand the little dots, the little red notification dots.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
like that.
So I
either.
got to clear them out.
Yeah.
And so usually when I wake up in the morning, I've missed 2 or 3 during the night, and and people know that if they need me to call me. But that's, I think you got to be intentional about that. I use a phrase sometimes: we need to divorce our phones,
Oh,
Yeah.
right? And just separate from them.
Yeah.
And we're not living in a day and age that's easy. I think you got to be intentional about it. But again, what does that do? That just kind of helps me recharge.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got you, man. You said something come to my mind a second ago, and I'm going to put it out there, man. I know it's a faith-based program. There's people that obviously do not agree with that, but I have seen you take God out of it, but the discipline, the procedures, the clinic, because there's some clinical work that goes on as well.
absolutely.
How do you think, so let's take God out of it, okay? Like, how would somebody that's watching or that doesn't believe in any of that, what would you say to them how 100% the Foundry could help them?
So that the outcome is still a changed life, right?
Yeah.
I think the Foundry, going back to that previous conversation, gives you the time to say, all right, I'm going to do some self-evaluation here. I'm going to do some inventory of my life. My best decisions landed me here. Bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. If I want to have a different outcome moving forward, I need to make some decisions that are going to affect that. There's a phrase that I love: decisions lead, feelings follow. Now the problem with that is how many times do we lead with our feelings?
Oh.
And that's just not the way it works.
Yeah.
We're not designed to work that way. So I have to decide that life is going to be different. And then I begin to feel like life is going to be different. Now, you asked me a tough question, Chris, because I don't believe we can do that in and of our own ability.
Yeah.
But the reality is, not everybody that comes to the Foundry is a believer, is a Christian. Not everybody that comes to the Foundry leaves as a Christian. And you know what? That's okay. That's not a prerequisite to graduation as a profession of faith in Jesus. But what I think benefits, the principles from God's Word are true whether you believe in God or not. Right?
Absolutely.
That what is required of us to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Yeah.
How does that not make you a better person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Honor thy mother and thy father. You know what that means? That means honor the relationships of special people in your life. How does that not make you better? The principles are transferable.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't know that you can separate that from the Creator,
Mm-hmm.
but the truth is, there are people that greatly benefit from what we offer at the Foundry that leave without being a follower of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about changing the course of my life
Yeah.
and not ending. What's the definition of insanity?
Doing the same thing over and over.
expecting different results.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've all been guilty of insanity in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so I think that gives the Foundry is kind of one of that. It's that place where you get the opportunity to stop the insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you this, man, and you don't have to answer this. We always talk about with the Foundry, they do a lot of things well. Obviously, I think they do everything. But what could the Foundry do better at?
Yeah. I think there's I would be
Or could be better. I mean,
Sure.
phrase it any way you want to, you know?
I would be a fool to think we were perfect,
Mm-hmm.
because I recognize it, because I don't think we're nearly where we want to be as a ministry, as a nonprofit. I'll kind of answer that question from a ministry perspective. How could we be better? I tell you, one of the things we strive for is what I refer to, the scriptures refer to as long suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That we have a long runway of tolerance. And sometimes that's just not easy when you're dealing with people,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're wearing me out. I'm tired of your nonsense. You're not getting it. You're not picking up what we're putting down,
exactly.
right? And the whole idea is for us as a staff and as a ministry to be more long-suffering, I think is one of the things that we are striving to be better at.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my job is to be the head coach. And so I'm coaching the team. I did it 2 days ago yesterday morning at our staff meeting. About 80 of our 110 staff gather once a month. Usually it's a variety of people, but usually about 75 to 80 of us. And my job is to give them the tools to make the best decisions when chaos in their environment happens.
Mm-hmm.
For example, in the thrift store, in the back end on the production side. I don't know if you guys served in the back of production at all.
Yeah.
Right? So you know firsthand, that gets kind of crazy some days.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes the people back there get crazy some days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so as a staff, where can we be better? To where our first instinct is always to say, all right, how can I get into your shoes to help you get better in this moment?
Mm-hmm.
Because we're all going to have chaos,
Yeah.
right? So what could we improve in? It's the way we love first and love most. We're always going to be working at it.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always going to be trying to get better at it. Could we improve on? Absolutely. I'm one of those guys that has a tendency to find, to pick through everything that we do,
Yeah.
because I want us to be the best.
Yeah.
I really do. For two reasons. One, I think God deserves our best, and I think the men and women that we serve deserve our best. I don't want to ever be known as the place that was just kind of ho-hum, right? That's a pretty good place. And so we're always tweaking it and always working at it. I think this is going to be kind of unique, I think, in different campuses. But our facilities, man, are old, right? You guys walked in here today and were like, man, this is really nice compared to the farm. Farm looks like farm buildings,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But the newest dorm we have is at the farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the newest chapel space we have is at the farm.
Yeah.
The chapel that we have here in Bessemer is 75 years old,
Yeah.
right? So one of the things that I think we want to do better is we worked really hard to be able to develop a program that was first class, that was proven to help people change the course of their life. We work really hard continuously to make sure we're hiring the right people.
Yeah.
The next piece on the puzzle, in the puzzle for us at the Foundry, is facilities. We're not ready to make that big public announcement yet, but we're working with our board of directors. We've got a company that's kind of helping us develop a master plan for the Foundry Farm, for the Bessemer campus, and for Change Lives Christian Center. It says 10 years from now, we want to have first-class spaces as well.
Yeah.
And so we're always tweaking it, trying to make it better. Where can we improve? I think there are fewer places that we don't need to improve than there are places that we do need to improve. But with that being said, still a pretty special place.
No, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
But
How does, I know you just talked about the Foundry, man. What does, how do you, I guess, hold yourself accountable to be better and serve everybody every day?
and you're getting in the deep weeds on me.
Yeah, I mean,
I like that,
No,
though.
well, you don't
No.
feel any time not to answer any of this.
No,
You don't
I
feel
love
like
it.
that, you know?
I love it. I tell you, the most important thing that I do outside of personal time with God, right,
Mm-hmm.
is I have an individual in my life that is, I've been meeting with this guy every single month for 6 years now, maybe about to go into our 7th year. Supposed to have had lunch with him today, didn't work out. He is the one that keeps my feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
He don't let me grow. In fact, almost every single time I'm with him, he brings me a new book to read. Drives me crazy. I got to stack this high that I ain't even got to yet.
Yeah.
He keeps bringing them to me. He'll think of an idea. He is if you want to call somebody an accountability partner,
Yeah.
that's who this guy would be in my life. He has access to all my internet searches on my work laptop.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because I want to make sure that I'm living everything I can do and everything I can do to make sure I'm living to a standard that I should be living at. He's the one that asks me the tough questions. Without fail, every time we're together, he says, "So what's God saying to you?" Well, I know he's going to ask me that question,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I better be listening at the time when I hadn't seen him to what God's saying, because Tommy's going to ask me about it. And so for me, how do I, man, having somebody that knows my secrets
Yeah.
is the key.
Cool.
Because otherwise, what we're going to do? We're going to start hiding stuff.
Yep.
I taught this lesson one time at the Foundry about a house, that I'll let people in my living room. I'll let people in the bathroom and in the kitchen, but you got to stay out of the bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or whatever the room may be.
Yeah.
And unless we let somebody in every room of our house, so to speak, we'll start keeping secrets.
Yeah.
When we can start keeping secrets, that's a slippery slope before I start isolating.
Yeah.
If I
Yep.
start isolating, you guys know where it goes from there.
Oh, buddy.
So, man, we encourage people to be a part of a church, to be a part of a small group of people that are pulling in the same direction. For me, I do the same thing. I'm part of a group of guys at my church. Oddly enough, I'm part of a group of guys. I think this is our 19th or 20th year that we are a fantasy football small group.
Nice. Yeah.
We compete on the weekends. But I got a call from a guy in my fantasy football group day before yesterday. He said, "Hey, Mike, I know you hadn't heard this yet. My brother just passed away." Right? And he's just kind of telling me about their relationship. And so, man, it's important to have people in your life. And that's kind of how I make sure because here's the other side of it. I know me. It ain't always fun to let everybody know you're garbage.
Yeah. It's not.
In fact, it's shameful, it's humiliating, and I'm not any different than anybody else. If I ain't careful, I'll have a big old pile of garbage in my life. And so I just try to do everything I can to say, you know what, I'll always have garbage, but I'm not going to let the garbage pile up. I'm not going to let it start stinking in my house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Gotta take the trash out, man.
got to take the trash. Okay, you can teach that right there. You can preach that in a sermon.
Come
Gotta
on
take the
now.
garbage out. But that's very practical for me.
Yeah.
I know that I can call Tommy at any point in time, and I'll tell you, and I'm not going to give you the details of this, but man, I had what I would call just I closed the God door and opened up the Micah door. And I just felt like a moron for about 2 or 3 days. I was just living in just the trash pile. And I called him. I said, "Hey, Tommy, I need you to meet me." He met me at the Summit in the parking lot one day. This 3 or 4 years ago now. And he got in the truck with me, and we sat and talked. And man, I just fell apart. I said, "Look, I've sinned. I mean, that's what I sinned, and I can't keep it to myself, and I need to tell somebody." And I told him all the dirty details of what where I had been for in my heart and my head. And man, I'll never forget it. He put his arm around me. He said, "You know what? I get it, but here's the best part about it. You've brought it to light now. You don't have to keep carrying it.
Yeah.
It's now ours to lay down." And man, you got to have people like that care about you enough to say, or I do. I think it's good medicine for all of us. But long answer to a short question. But that for me, it's other people that I'm accountable to.
Yeah. That's where me and him, man, we were just eating lunch talking about that. You know, it's kind of, we work together, we do this podcast together, we live together. It's, you know, that's one thing is like, I'm grateful for to have a friend like Chris. And I met him through the Foundry.
Yeah.
Man, I'm telling you, it's funny where if you sit and listen, you open your eyes just a little bit into the people that you allow in your life. And not everybody, of course, but like you said, you got to have those people, even if it's just one, to be there. Like, I call him on a day, even if I see him or whatever, if we leave and I'm like, dude, like, you know how you asked me earlier, all right, this is what was on my mind. I just didn't know how to say it like then, you know, so, but man, you really do, you have to have people and that willingness to open up, because it's living in that what you call bondage and things like that. And we did it for the darkness. That's where I talk about it all the time. That's where we say it too, man. It's like we lived in that darkness. I know true darkness. I've seen it. I've been through it. I lived it for a long time. Didn't know how to explain it or tell, or because I felt like I had nobody to tell, or I felt like I was the only one, I guess, so to speak. I knew there were people, but I was selfish. I was doing terrible things. I wasn't living a good life, so it was hard. I had to, and that's where it's taking that time to find yourself. Whether you go to the Foundry, whether you go, I try to tell everybody now. Everybody's like, what do you? Because they see that light in me now. They see the light in us. They see, they're like, what's up,
Right.
And it's like, man, find if you lost, which it's you that loses God, find Him again. And 2, you have to. I can't tell you why I'm different. I was always Chase. I just wasn't doing the right things to be the real Chase. I was given more advice that I should have been telling myself, and living a bad life, man. That's what we get lost, and it's okay. But like, you gotta come back and find why, what road you took, Yeah. Now you gotta find a different direction. And that's where I feel like in life, man, and I'm still learning that. I haven't figured it out, and I don't know how to tell people, it's just, I'm like, man, I changed my way of living. I found God again. I'm trying to do things every day. I wake up, like you said, every day to set my mind a different direction than what I was, because I saw that darkness. I'm steering clear of that. I don't want that no more. I don't want to be a part of that anymore. I don't want to be a part of the people that are doing whatever, man. And it sucks because you have to get rid of a lot of things to find your true peace, to find what you're meant to do. There's a lot of garbage you have to take out, man. And you don't, it's not easy, but there's plenty of ways you can do it, but that's the ways I'm starting to find that help me.
Yeah.
And that's all that's just like the best advice I can give them. They're like, well, what'd you do to get, how aren't you not drinking anymore? How aren't you doing this? It's like, well, I had to go to a program, but again, that might not be for you, but take the time and stop. And like you said, listen and just find yourself. Be silent. Take 6 months and don't talk to people, man. If you got to worry about work, but find yourself. Like, you got to find within and take that time to find you. And it's really all I can say, honestly. Like, that's where there's no best answer. There's just, you gotta learn the right steps and to do the right things. And like we say too, it's when you do the right things and you do good for people and you serve people, typically good things happen.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It doesn't show right away sometimes. Sometimes it does. You're like, dang. But those aren't the reasons why you do it.
Right.
It's that feeling you get.
That's the response from doing what you do.
Yeah, it's that
No doubt.
feeling you get.
Yeah.
When you it's like, man, like when you feel good inside, that's the real thing that you want and you get and you deserve, man. And like not getting something out of something.
Right.
Do it because you want to. That's it for me.
What's fun is when you start doing it because that's who you are.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
It just becomes the natural response.
Yeah.
One more thing about what we were just talking about. I use this phrase all the time. Life was never intended to be a solo flight, right? And I think that's why it's critical to have somebody in your life. And also, wisdom says I don't need to tell everybody my stuff.
Oh yeah, no.
But I gotta tell somebody.
Yeah, I gotta tell somebody
because life is intended to be a group project, not a solo.
Oh yeah,
project.
you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody said, there's no such thing as a Rambo.
No.
Ain't no such thing as a Rambo.
Good movie though.
Yeah.
I love that
good.
movie, man.
Yeah.
I love that movie. Well, Micah, we ain't going to take up any more of your time, man. Thank you for sitting down with us, dude. We really appreciate it. I really don't think you understand how much of a difference you made in not only chasing myself, but, not the Foundry, but the community, you're impacting future generations.
Absolutely.
Of people. They can go home and now they can be a father or a mother or uncle to their kids and people around them. So it's just exponentially impacting things. Because we say this all the time, I don't care about your money. I don't care about giving you material things. One thing you can give me is your time because you never get the time back. And that's, we appreciate that time, that people put for us. We really do, man.
That's why we do this.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this. I'm proud of you guys for this reason. You're using a platform to make this world a better place.
Mm-hmm.
Do I believe there's a God motivation behind it? I'm positive of it. But here's what I know. Because of what you guys are doing, based on what's been done in you, you're making this world a better place. And there's not enough of that happening in this world.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm proud of both of you guys.
Thank you.
Very much so.
Thank you.
Man.
And I appreciate you spending this time with me, man.
Yeah,
dude.
we've been excited, dude. We're like, dude,
I get to do the Foundry podcast pretty regularly,
Oh,
but I
yeah?
don't get to do many other ones. So I appreciate the opportunity to
Yeah.
we
to
appreciate
just kind
it.
of share my heart.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Yeah.
you coming on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
That's it.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Good.
Well, thank you. Love you.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, show Micah some love, y'all.
Come on.
Yeah, show him some love.
like and subscribe. 1 million. We want 1 million subscribers. Show Marco some love.
And keep all your negative comments to yourself.
Yeah. Keep them away. This is positivity around here.
Yeah.
Well, we love y'all.
Yeah.